Morning, everybody. Chilly day on top of the mountain here, which matters much more on that motorcycle than it does in this car. This is the BMW X6M competition. First time I've driven an X6 since 2014.
Wow.
That was the last time I had to go in one.
The last one I drove was a 2015, but it was modified. So, yeah.
So, the X6 is mechanically and dimensionally virtually identical to the X5.
Right.
If you just sat in the front seat, you drove both, you probably couldn't tell the difference. The only real differences are the styling, obviously. The price, X6 is $3,500 more.
Right.
And the fact that the X5 has 7 more cubic feet of trunk space, but also more rear seat space, headroom,
right.
More rear seat headroom.
Of course.
In the competition version, which we have here, you get a 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8, making 617 horsepower and 553 pound-feet of torque. The non-comp makes a 600 even. So you're only getting 17 horsepower, but you get other stuff too. For the $9,000 competition package, you get the horsepower, you get a strut tower brace, sport exhaust, track driving modes in the M dynamic mode system, blackout trim, extended leather, special motor mounts, and exclusive colors like this really fabulous Ametrin, A-M-E-T-R-I-N, Ametrin.
I've never heard that word, but it's a cool purple.
It's wine. It's a wine color.
Yeah,
plum.
Wine, plum.
It's a lovely color.
Yeah,
it's the best thing about how this car looks.
It does help the shape of it. It does.
It does. Yeah, this car in the right color or the wrong color can make a difference. 0 to 60 as tested with the compact, 3.6 seconds.
Crazy.
Top speed is 177 with the M driver's pack, and part of that is a Pilot Sport 4S tire. The PS4S on this car is staggered, directional,
and huge
and enormous.
Huge.
Right? So you cannot rotate tires. One tire, one corner. 295 21s in the front, 315 22s in the back.
The rear, that's bigger than the rear tires on a C6 Corvette.
Right. It weighs 5,100 pounds, give or take. It has adaptive suspension, adaptive anti-roll control, a torque vectoring differential, and a lot of other gadgetry.
Lots of tech.
So what M dynamic mode have you put us in, Zach? Are we in one?
No, I drove up here in comfort. I was just playing with that to show
This is
people,
great because you can do
settings.
it with the touch screen.
Yeah.
So we'll
touch
put
or scroll knob.
Right.
Is great. Thank you, BMW.
So manual mode, fast shifting. Let's go. Hey, how did I get manual? There we go. It ended up back in D.
Well, I found the shifter to be kind of weird. It's, over left is reverse, but if you hit the park button while it's over and left, it will go into park even though the shifter is, quote, in reverse.
Right. The X6, you have to press P for park. The X6 is everything about cars in 2021. It's extremely powerful. The handling is ridiculous. It has a tall ride, plenty of suspension. It probably weighs too much, and it has no feel. That's pretty much where we're at. Right?
I would agree with those statements. Yeah, the steering, the steering rack is quick. The responsiveness is really quick, but oh boy,
I just initiated oversteer.
But you can't feel anything. Well, that's so part of
that was accidental, by the way.
Yeah, part of the thing with the comp is they want to make it feel more rear drive bias, so they put that M diff in the back, and they also play with the torque vectoring a little bit, the staggered stance as well.
It's real fast.
Incredibly
but it's
fast.
muted. No, I have no idea what is happening with the tires. It's all happening somewhere else. I'm gliding above it. I'm covering a lot of ground at a lot of pace.
It's kind of like sim racing, actually. I've always thought that these were it's like sitting on the roof of a sports car, but it's actually like sim racing now because they've gotten so fast and there's so much performance, but you're not really feeling it. You're just watching the road go by incredibly quickly.
It's really, really fast. So in 2013, if you don't know, I raced an X5M in the One Lap of America, and I finished 30th out of 80 with Musto. 30th out of 80, beating almost all sports cars. You know what I mean? We were beating M3s, we beat some Porsches. These things are crazy, crazy fast. And I know it sounds dumb, and it's probably not the thing you would do, but you could straight up, straight face take this to a track day and mob and drive it hard all day and then go home, and you'd be fine.
Right, one lap is what, 7 track days in 7 days with road trips in between.
Massive transits.
Huge transits, and you're running, you know, pretty aggressive. What, 3 laps, 5 laps?
You run 2 3-lap time attacks.
Okay.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're in a 5,300-pound truck where you can't rotate the tires, that was actually the hardest part. The hardest part, because you have to do 1 lap, was on 1 set of tires. And so you can't rotate and you can't do anything on this. So the front tires got really, really worn out. And I really lost front grip at the end. On fresh tires, I mean, this thing turns in like a Nissan GTR.
It's crazy. And the brakes that you had could withstand those forces. And now the brakes have only gotten bigger and better than they were back then.
Right. 8-speed gearbox, really, really smooth, crisp shifts. Very well matched to the car.
The shifts are like imperceptible. When I was downshifting, the only reason I knew it had downshifted is because I watched the heads-up display jump.
Right.
It's like, it's really quiet, despite having the biggest exhaust pipes I have seen, you know, this side of like a Shelby Cobra.
They're like 5-inch cans.
Yeah, my hand fits in them. Go to the clip now.
Big cans.
Big cans. But you don't really hear it on the inside.
You were right to go into 1. Yeah, you're right. So, on the everyday tip, right, this thing is really comfortable. The ride is great. The seats are great. Massage seats are going. I love that. And it is kind of a peaceful space, a little bit of a sensory deprivation chamber.
Definitely.
You know, it's calm and serene, and the stereo's very good, and the climate control keeps it right. You know, why don't you drive up the hill? Well, what was interesting about that little bit of accidental oversteer was, like I said, the wheel didn't tell me that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't sense the grip going away there. It just happened.
Which was, we just drove the M4 last week, or a year ago, depending on when you're watching this video, and we had the same feeling. Like, you couldn't really tell what the tires were doing.
Well, see, that's kind of interesting, because the M4 has... You know, one would get an M4 instead of something like this, you know, for the feel, right?
Right.
But the M4 didn't really have the feel.
No, yeah.
It didn't really offer that much more feel than this did.
And that's really what made us focus on the M2.
Right.
If you want feel from a BMW, especially, you know, a coupe sports car, you need to get the M2.
Right. And then you remember last year when the X7 and 6 and 5 came out with the oversized grills, and we were all, ew, this big grill? And then the M4 was like, hold my beer.
Right. Yeah, the grill on the M4 looks, I think it's taller than this one.
It is, it's bigger.
This one is not small, but the one on the M4 is bigger, and the front profile of that the hood is smaller, so it looks even more kind of strangely proportioned. This car is so fast. Those are the bump stops. That was incredible.
They just repaved that. It used to be more pronounced.
It's so
major negative G.
And I came up here to meet you. You're on the Ducati motorcycle, and I mean, like, we're slicing these corners. It doesn't make sense for the weight of this car.
And it never has. I mean, this has been a gravity-defying vehicle since it was launched. And even when I drove the one in 2014, I went back and watched that review. Mm-hmm. And the conclusion was, I'm not really into how this thing looks, but oh my God, it is obscenely fast. And in fact, I think dynamically, when you start pushing it, it is a little more fun than like a Cayenne Turbo. Because Cayennes don't use the really fast gearboxes. They use the 8-speed, so they can tow.
Right.
They don't use the PDK. So I think if you really want to go fast in an SUV, the X5 and X6 are actually a little quicker.
Wow. I mean, you know, the 4.4 liter is a really nice engine. I don't know do you know what the torque is compared to the Cayennes for?
I don't know.
It's probably really similar.
I don't know offhand. They're all in it's all high 5s,
yeah,
low 6s.
They're all really close. It's kind of like, what shape do you want your lifted sedan to be? Because that's what I think these are. You know, my joke is that they stopped selling sedans as much, and the only way to convince people to buy sedans is to just turn them into lifted trucks.
Exactly.
So that's what the SUV, SAV coupe is.
So do you remember there was a category of vehicle that doesn't really exist anymore in the 70s and 80s, and it was called the personal luxury coupe. These were not sports cars. These were cars that were the size of sedans and wagons, but only had 2 doors.
Right.
And they existed to carry one person in comfort and luxury, and to take up more physical space than one person should ever need, expressing that I have excess that I don't need.
Right.
That's what the slopey roof is. The slopey roof is the personal luxury coupe because it's less good at carrying cargo. It's less good at carrying rear passengers. They tend to be the high-performance AMG and M versions, not the base models.
Right.
And you see them being driven by single individuals.
Yeah, very true. It carries less stuff, but the person who owns this probably will have someone else bring their things.
Right.
You know, they're not packing their trunk to the roof very often.
Someone they want the ride height, they want that feeling of being up high, they want that feeling of having something real substantial all around them, but the whole time, even they know that it is way more than they actually need. And if they needed the utility, they would just get the regular squared off roof.
Absolutely. Should we do a launch?
Yeah, go ahead. Do it right there. Okay.
We should do a launch.
Do a launch. It's not that dramatic in these because it's an automatic, so it doesn't dump.
Yeah.
You know, it just sort of loads. There is really fundamentally no difference between this and the X5.
No,
except how it looks.
How it looks, which, I mean, I prefer the X5.
Me too.
And, you know, it's also weird that they charge you more for this than the X5. They probably produce fewer of these, so it's just simple economics for them. But I think it's like,
it's
there's
perception.
2 identical condos, but one of them has a smaller closet, and you're like, yeah, I'll pay more for that one.
It's perception. One has a smaller closet, but it has, 2 bars. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like how do I make people know that I'm single and driving this?
This condo comes with zebra seats
around
the dining room table.
But
you're like, oh,
if you're looking for a place to do a launch, you're not going to find it down here.
I went the wrong way.
We're on a tight section now.
All right.
So, but speaking of money and value, here's what people don't really think about, or what I didn't think about until I started looking into this. This thing is about 117K base, 130 is tested. The as tested options are good options. It's got the stereo, the massage seats, the color. These are good options. It doesn't have too many stupid options, right? So think of that as pretty much the max you want to spend, right? 130. 130 is about 25 grand, 20 grand more than the most expensive Macan. But it's about 70 grand less than the most expensive Cayenne.
That's huge.
So what you don't think about is that the X5 and X6M are closer to Macan turbo prices than they are to Cayenne turbo prices.
That's bananas.
The Cayenne is a lot more expensive than this when equivalently equipped.
And they do the same job.
Right. The wild card is the new Audi RS Q8, which has same performance as this. In a lot of the ways they check all the same boxes. You know what I mean? But in my opinion, the RS Q8 is a better looking Urus. Whereas this is a worse looking X5M, right? Or M5.
Right.
So again, looks are subjective.
Of course.
I still don't like how this looks. You can get the powertrain with the X5, but the RS Q8 is the slopey back one that I would be fucking with if I was fucking with a slopey back one.
Yeah, the design of that looks less compromised.
Right.
It doesn't. This one, it looks like they just chopped off that squared
Yeah.
edge. That one looks a little bit, but yeah, whichever people like. There's a lot of flavors if you want a spicy lifted SUV.
Right.
You get into a lot of different shapes.
Right, and it embarrasses me a little bit to say this, but I prefer driving this to the M5 because in my everyday life, the extra suspension travel makes a difference. This is just me.
I
lived in Germany.
I just made that U-turn into that small pullout, and I probably couldn't have done that in a sedan because it would have been too low and probably would have scraped.
Yeah.
That's true. But I like the way the M5 looks. I'd walk out and like it every day. I like the back of this, dead on. I actually like the shape of the lights more than the M4.
That's just you.
Strange.
That's all you. I would I personally would buy the X5M, but thank you to BMW for letting us try this X6M. Believe it or not, it's actually pretty decent value for what they're charging. It's everything. It's the comfort, it's the speed, it's the style, it's the features, it's the electronics, it's the adjustability and the versatility. It's all there.
Yeah, it's an extroverted speed machine.
Thanks to you guys. Thanks to you guys for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye.
And remember, always fight your tickets. Use code TST10 on the Off the Record app available in the Android and iOS store, or go to offtherecord.com/TST.